uh, with Vince Giordano, and I'm really excited about this interview. Vince and I are sharing a lot of similar background, both from specialty vehicle industry. So it's going to be a kind of a special interview for me. Uh, Vince, I'm really glad to have you here. Welcome to this interview. I hope that the audience will learn, grasp as much as they can from this the next 15-20 minutes. And with that said, I want to just give the floor to you for a quick introduction, and then we'll just get the interview started.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. And yeah, like you, I hope it's helpful. I spend a lot of time producing content on LinkedIn that really, I'm not trying to build a personal following. I'm just trying to help people who find themselves in similar situations like we do, where you're leading a group of people, and how do we do that more effectively? How do we lead business, and how do we lead people in effective ways? And so I have been in the manufacturing space for about 8 years, and for the last 6 or so, just under 6, just under 8, I was with a single company called Hog Technologies. We manufacture specialty vehicles that do work on roadways and runways all throughout the world. We deliver them to about 58 countries around the world. And about a little over a year and a half ago, we were acquired by a larger company called Federal Signal. And they have 26 manufacturing companies.
Wow.
And as of April this year, I took over 3 additional companies in one group that we call the Road Marking and Water Blasting Group. So now I have responsibility for in the neighborhood of 700 to 750 team members, along with I'd have to probably do some quick math in my head, somewhere around $500 million in revenue responsibility between the companies. But I tell people frequently, with 4 times the companies and 4 times the people, there's 4 times the challenges, but also 4 times the opportunities.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. That's very impressive. I mean, the number of people that you're dealing with. And I know that you're probably not dealing with every single body in the company, but still the span of influence that you have across the whole organization is pretty impressive. And so again, I mean, I'm always using this saying that if a leader wins, everybody wins, right? So, and
absolutely.
This is very impressive. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a saying that there's no limit to how far you can go if you don't care who gets the credit for it. So
Right. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So you talked about your leadership within the specialty vehicle with the hot technologies in the last 8 years. What really, where is the starting point of your leadership journey? I mean, how did you start that, and how did you grow that, all the skills that you have with your leadership? What philosophy is in leadership are you taking or practicing? And yeah, just anything as far as your journey in leadership.
well, my first opportunity was given to me many years ago. I'm almost embarrassed to say how many years ago, but it was a long time ago. And I was working for a company based out of Canada called Thomson, THOMSON, Thomson Media. And I was in the media space. I spent a lot of years in advertising in the days when newspapers were still a thing, and television and radio. And so I initially started leading as a young person in that space. And I was the first internet guy. And it was around 1991, 92. And the newspapers were all launching internet properties as part of their offering. And they were doing all kinds of things back in those days. No one really knew how the internet was going to get monetized. And so we were selling dial-up internet back a long time ago. And we were doing web development, a lot of different things. But that was my first leadership role, sort of in a technology slant. And so I was leading people who were lifers in the newspaper industry, a lot of people who were much older than I was. But I had a really good mentor when I was young, who is just a tremendous gentleman who is still in the leadership space. He teaches leadership. He speaks all over the world. And that guy was a really strong influence on me. His name is Julio Malera. and he lives in Louisiana. He actually owns and operates Valera Enterprises now, but he used to run the Baton Rouge Business Report. And he and I worked together in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I grew up, and I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot about how to lead. And, of course, we all learn leadership through making a lot of mistakes, but, I just, and I can't, John Maxwell's a big influence. I've just read so many leadership books, I lose track of how much, whether or not it's my thought or a thought that I read years ago, but I've always felt like, we manage process and we lead people, right? Manage process and lead people. And I've tried to do that as much as I can. And just try to always honor people and help people feel seen and help people feel heard and validated. And, as we've grown in our lives and this lifetime, things like emotional intelligence and self-awareness and social awareness are probably three things that I've just invested a lot of time in from my very first leadership position. So anyway, so I know I went down the block to answer your question.
No, that's great. That's great. As a lean practitioner, one thing that we always try to just basically, pound in and make it a way of living and working is opportunities are always most of the time is within processes, right? But as leaders, many leaders, as soon as they see a problem, the easiest way is to just blame on the people. But really going a little bit deeper into it is the processes are leading into things that are not working or working. Sure. And really, managing the processes and leading the people is pretty strong because, again, that's very much aligned with processes are the cause of issues, not people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And John Maxwell.
That's well said. Yeah.
Actually, there is a global leadership summit starting when Thursday and Friday this week, and John is one. If I'm not mistaken, I'm attending it, and I think that John is one of the speakers in the conference. So that's great.
He lives not far from us, and we actually have a full production studio here in our manufacturing facility because we create content for training and safety, and when you have equipment in 50 plus countries, outsourcing that work can be very expensive. So we use that facility, but John has actually rented that facility from us a few times and used it to do broadcasting.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Well, so from a leader, we have three different. I'm pretty sure there are way more different ways to categorize leadership styles and philosophies. But one I'm using is like serving leaders, transformational leaders, and transactional leaders. So how would you manage the shift between different type of leadership depending on the situation? What are different cues that you look for to say, hey, I need to be a very transactional on this matter, but I may need to be transformational in other matters. So how would you manage all those different situations from that perspective?
First, great way to put it. And second, I think when you're managing across multiple organizations and multiple different types of leaders, it's incredibly important that you are strong at making connections with people that you're leading and with an organization. So I think when it comes to the leadership style, which when I think of what you mentioned, transformational leadership, transactional leadership, what was the third one?
Serving leadership.
Serving leadership. Yeah. So I think from a stylistic perspective, transformational leadership is such an important example-based type of leadership. So and I'm going to get to servant leadership because you might want to think I would say that about servant leadership, but I'm going to say that a little bit differently. Transformational leadership, I think we need to be constantly displaying the characteristics that we want our leaders to emulate in our organization. And those are the ways that you're going to build transformation within organizations, particularly when there's cultural issues within an organization. So you have to be someone as a leader who lives the values of the organization on a day-to-day basis. And you're consistent with how you live those values, and you allow for feedback loops with your team where you're either lacking consistency or maybe even lacking efficacy in living out those values in front of the team. I think you have to have a trusted circle among your leaders. So in an organization like Hog, we have what I call our executive leadership team, and we probably have about 7 folks at that table. But then we have an expanded group of leaders that really anybody who has a direct report, and even a couple of people that don't, that is about 25 or 30 people, right? And within that 7, there's probably 2 that are even closer, where those are folks, I feel like anyone in our organization can speak real to me and come in. And I always tell people I have no issue getting feedback and hearing if you think I'm not doing a good job, or if I'm not setting a good example. So it's going to take me forever to answer if I don't roll, but I'm going to say this: for transformational leadership, to me, that's by example. For transactional leadership, again, just consistent integrity in your decision making and consistent responsiveness. I really think that one of the things that leaders do poorly is that they force people to engage with them on their terms, and on the leader's terms, not their own terms, right? And that creates unspoken trust issues and barriers with your team members, right? And so the healthiest cultures and the healthiest teams, to me, have very honest and open and candid feedback, right? You think about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, right? And the ability.
Patrick Michioli,
of course, and your ability within those teams to have honest, candid feedback. And to me, that's part of it. In the transactional leadership, I just need to have consistency, integrity, responsiveness. Those things are important. Servant leadership, obviously, when I think of servant leadership, faith is a big part of my life experience. And so for me, servant leadership is displayed by my willingness within the organization to do anything that I would be willing, or anything that I might be asking someone on the team to do, right? Am I willing to do
the same?
Right. And so to me, we display servant leadership that way. And we also, always get ourselves in scenarios where we're taking part and not disengaging. I'm not a leader who feels like I need a special parking spot in front of the building. No offense if that's you. If you're a founder of a building, maybe, I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes, but I feel like that to me, not my thing. So I want to be the kind of person who is constantly displaying servant qualities to the people on my team. And again, I think those kinds of things build loyalty, they build trust, they build psychological safety, and all the things you want on a team, right? And generally, I'll say this last thing: if the culture is broken in a business, it's almost always going to be directly related to the leader. How is the leader displaying servant leadership, transformational leadership, and transactional leadership, to use your terms? How are you displaying those things on a day-to-day basis to your teams? And are you creating an environment where people feel psychologically safe and they feel like they're able to bring their whole person into their work and be appreciated, seen, understood, heard? Those are not easy things, and especially for people who are not used to walking their day-to-day life that way. But I think they're critical if you're going to be successful as a leader, especially today as the next generation is coming into the workforce. There's going to be a very high value on those kinds of things. And if you're seeing a disconnect in your leadership and the next generation of workers, it may not just be them, it may be you.
Yeah. So just for the audience, I would like to do a little bit of a specific terms I want to use here that you used. I mean, you somehow relate transformational with leading by example. So that's one. The second thing, when you talked about the transactional leadership, you talked about responsiveness. Because in a transactional world, you need things moving, right? It's a very result oriented. So you have to be responsive. And the last one, the servant leadership, you tie that with like well, you use that in your word, but hey, I'm not going to have that parking spot in the parking lot. That's the best parking spot, right? But what was really strong on that set was you're not gonna ask someone to do something unless you are willing to do it, right? Because
Sure.
I think that these are all really, I mean, in a nutshell of leadership, if everybody can just, depending on the situation, going from responding, going from providing or putting the right example out there, or making sure that you can show that, hey, I'm giving you this task not just because I'm a leader, because this is something I would go ahead and do it myself. Uh, that's great, and bringing up the five dysfunction of teams by Lincioni, that's a strong for audience if they want to just learn how really to build a good performing team. Looking
Yeah,
at the hierarchy of those five dysfunction is very strong. Sounds
agreed.
great. I know that we are getting to the end, but I have one more question if you have time,
I do.
Vince. Yeah, okay, perfect. So the last question that I want to ask you is, as a leader who is leading relatively big operations, right? All the four now together, you're talking about $500 million revenue. You're talking about a few hundred employees that reporting to you in different hierarchies. So, what kind of legacy are you willing to put behind, right? Or leaving with the people so they remind you or recall you from what those legacies that you're leaving for them?
Boy, man, that's such a good question. It almost, I'm not going to, but I could almost get emotional talking about legacy because I had a personal life experience about 12 years ago where I lost my mom, and
Wow.
it was a critical turning point for me where I became far less concerned about uh, my title, my tasks, uh, my, really anything other than legacy and making her proud.
Uh-huh.
And you don't have to have that kind of experience to have that kind of drive for legacy. But I think for me, what drives me is wanting to lead and live in a way that puts character and integrity first so that in my wake, there's going to be uh, people impacted by decisions made with character and integrity at the forefront and the valuing of people at the forefront. Certainly, none of us exist outside of a pursuit of profit within a business, right? There's that is obviously why
That's
we're
yeah,
in
excellent.
for-profit business. But if you don't prioritize people within the context of for-profit business, you're not going to have profit. And so, and in my opinion, the best way to prioritize people is to treat them with a high level of dignity and respect. And I'll tell you a really quick story. I took over a branch at a company in California, and when I walked into the building, it was I'm not going to mention the company for obvious reasons, but it was a very toxic environment. The
Mm,
general manager of the business would walk into the room and half the team would walk out of the room. And what I did is I pulled my team together, which at the time was the sales team. And I said to the sales team, listen, we are going to lead in this business by how we treat each other. We're going to prioritize how we treat each other. So I don't care if it's the person who's coming by to take out the garbage from your desk or the general manager. We're going to treat everyone with respect and dignity, and we're going to greet people by name
mm,
and interact with them. And so when I ended up leaving that business, the person who takes out the garbage came into my office when he found out that I was leaving. He was about a 65-year-old man. And
uh-huh.
he had tears in his eyes and he said, "You're the first person that I've ever worked with who started telling me hello and greeting me. I've always just been the garbage guy." And so I have relationships from that position years ago that I still stay in contact with. And I would tell you that uh, when it comes to legacy, there's no more effective way to leave a legacy than if I can make you feel valuable as a human being And I think it was Maya Angelou who said, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And so I would tell you that it's how you make people feel as a leader is what's going to determine whether or not you're remembered into perpetuity. And so for me, the driving factor for me that sort of fueled me for that was the loss of my mom and wanting to make her proud. Your reason could be very different from that, but I think that's the key. It's how well do you value and respect people at all levels of the organization. That's the game changer, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that's amazing. I mean, I mean, how many organizations are out there, big names, running for years and years and years, but no one likes to talk about them. No one wants to talk about the culture they have. But
Yeah,
putting people first, again, you're absolutely right. For-profit business, at the end of the day, the balance sheet needs to show the right numbers, right? Right. It's the P&L needs to show that the business is still healthy to run. But what's more important? People, right? That's really what's the driver, right? At the end of the day, the people are driving the business. I mean, even for us being in technology world and doing a lot of those things, but at the end of the day, it's all about people and the influence that you can have on the people that can transform those people, because that's how really it's spreading out. So
that's right.
that's fantastic. Vince, I really enjoyed the conversation with you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a lot of good content. I think that the audience can really enjoy uh, this 20 minutes, pause a little bit, and look at the leadership from the lenses that uh, you just gave to all of us. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any last word before I stop the recording? Anything else that you want to share with the audience before we end the call?
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. If they want to connect on LinkedIn, I'm always available.
Awesome. Thank you very much again. Vincent Giordano, as I think that's your full name, so people can find you on LinkedIn, and definitely you can see that Vince has a very rich leadership background and a lot of good philosophies in how he's leading people. So I definitely encourage audience to reach out and ask questions.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to just stop recording here in just a second, and
Sure.
thank you, everybody, for listening to or watching our quick interview today. I'll talk to you all again soon.